And now for something different. Yesterday, I spoke before 3,500 people at the Torchlight March of Estonian nationalists on the Estonian Independence Day. This Torchlight March took place for the fourth time, and it was organized by the movement I founded, Blue Awakening. The first march brought together 120 people, and this year 3,500 nationalists marched for the future of Estonia and the future of Europe. It was a small dream come true. And I spoke before those 3,500 nationalists, and I told them, we have awoken, and having awoken, we have taken the heaviest burden to carry our nation through the history while others are still asleep. The fate of our country in 10, 50, or in 100 years depends on what is in our hearts. It will not depend on who will be in the government. And if in our hearts burns the eternal flame of nationalism that reminds us to place our nation above everything, then even the worst government cannot extinguish it. So this is what I told the 3,500 nationalists, both Estonian and European, on the Torchlight March. It was truly a proud moment for my country. Estonia, a small country in Northern Europe, a periphery throughout history, fought over by many nations, but still preserving its untouched wilderness and still preserving its indigenous European people. We Estonians arrived to our land 12,000 years ago, in the end of the Ice Age, and we have survived anything a nation can survive. And 99 years ago, we created our ethno-state, but half of its history was still in the chains of the Soviet occupation. But can we remain untouched by what is going on in the world? From the perspective of ethno-states and national identities, we can see the global situation either as a catastrophe or as a great new reawakening. And this reawakening has brought the Western world Brexit and Trump, and soon, hopefully, Le Pen and many others. When Trump stumped everyone and won, I just had the urge to sit down and enjoy the game. For this has truly been a triumph for both the West and us. But then I realized that his victory only takes us halfway. It slowed down the decline of the West, but it did not yet reverse it. We have to go much deeper if we really want to bring national identity to the forefront of politics again. We will have to go beyond what we have achieved. We have to totally reverse the cultural outcome of World War II. We will have to make Europe great again. And this idea requires a new doctrine of a 21st century nationalism. The nationalism of the 21st century is different from the nationalism of the 20th century, different from the nationalism of the 19th century. This has to be led by a totally new doctrine, a doctrine that I prefer to call ethnofuturism. Now, ethnofuturism is the idea of connecting our roots and our wings, our identity that is passed down to us from the past, and our future that our descendants will one day see. This civilization has wings, but it does not have roots. And without roots, it can't really fly. This civilization has been to the moon, but will it remain a one-time adventure? For even such technological field as space travel needs myths and dreams that come from mythology. And the European dreams are hidden, for our roots are hidden. Wings without roots can't fly, but roots without wings are simply dead. And so, we must not get stuck in the past. We must not waste our energy trying to simply recreate what once was. For all the glory of the last 2,000 years of European history, we still ended up here, questioning our future, our very survival at stake. No civilization lasts forever, and before its death, it becomes a mirror image of itself. For the last 2,000 years, Europe has still been living in the shadow of the Roman Empire. The Roman time is long over. Our task is not to recreate it. We carry our roots within, but the empires of the past have been just a material expression of our roots. Our roots themselves are not material. They are far deeper than that. All our future greatness will still be their result. And our true task is no less than creating a new European civilization. Europe is built of two seeds: the Greco-Roman civilized world and the barbarian north. Throughout this cycle, the first one dominated over the second. Now I believe it is time to give a chance to barbarian Europe, to lead the rest, to lead like the North Star, the symbol of the Blue Awakening. Once it showed way to our ancestors at sea, and one day the North Star itself might be a destination for our descendants, tribes of the North. We might need something even opposed to the refined civility of Rome, something born out of European wilderness of forests and mountains, something capable of reaching the stars, something wild in character, wild in its dreams. And this is why the last island of European identity is located in Eastern Europe, a periphery between American and Russian global spheres of influence, where the tragedy of 50 communist years can still be felt. But in the end, that struggle for survival only made our identity stronger. This part of Europe, united against foreign invasions as the Intermarium, a geopolitical bloc from the Baltic to the Black Sea, must form the heart of resistance in coming years. A safe base, a refuge for those who keep fighting in the West. But building this safe base requires that the nations between the Baltic and the Black Sea set aside their old rivalries. Sure, we can fight each other, but only after we have saved Europe. Until then, we have to cooperate. This should be the mission of all European nationalists. And our Torchlight March in Estonia is a shining example of this. Yesterday, we brought together Polish, Lithuanian, and Ukrainian nationalists, old enemies, now marching in unity, marching for Europe. We can only hope that this will be the start of something bigger. And perhaps, just perhaps, after we have saved Europe, after the wild Northeast has founded a new European civilization, there will be no more need for conflicts between European nations. Perhaps this present struggle binds us for a longer time. But first, we must stand for Europe. We must stand for an independent Europe, based on European identities, and led only by our identities, not imperialism that denies them. Both American and Russian imperialisms are foreign to Europe. And our end goal should be a destruction of both systems, forging independent white ethno-states in America, and independent ethno-states for Slavic, Finno-Ugric, and other nations who cannot right now express their identities in the East. Yesterday, in Estonia, a Ukrainian friend told me about what is going on in his country. Both the West and the East are the enemies of Europe, he said. We are fighting for independence, and independence for all Europe. And this can only be achieved through cooperation of all European nationalist forces, he said. And I believe he spoke for all European nationalists of the 21st century. For the nationalism of the 21st century has to be based on being itself, life itself, and that means it is simply about us. There will always be us, and there will always be them. All rationalizations based on cultural or genetic superiority are simply irrelevant. For if we only wanted the strongest and the smartest to survive, we would have a nation of East Asian sumo wrestlers. And even if the Europeans were not the master race, we would still be bound by our duty to our people and not anyone else. This is a duty that we know when we become aware of the vast cultural legacy of our ancestors, their mythology, their sense of seeing the world, which is totally different from the mechanistic view of the modern West. In a sense, the West has so degenerated that how our ancestors saw the universe is closer to the animistic beliefs of Black Africa or Australian Aboriginals than the Western civilization nowadays. For those people still had their roots, and it is our duty to find again our roots. We are the awakeners, pathfinders. We put ourselves into this process. This takes some of us, but some of us will also survive. And as awakeners, it may be our fate to never see our dreams fulfilled, to never see the future that we grant our descendants, to never know what roads they shall take, whether their dreams will be the same as ours, or whether they choose to forget our guidelines for something even greater and far more beautiful than what we could have imagined. We are merely the past of our descendants. But let's not fear, let's not despair, for we are the children of our lands. We can dream and we can fight. Even in dark times, even those born in hopeless time can dream and fight. Our enemies say that anyone can be a European. But Europeanness is not a ticket you can buy in an airport. Europeanness, in fact, is a secret. Deep down here, we know who we are. We all recognize our brother or sister from the same ancestors. Our ancestors, our roots, are what make us European. We might not often say it, but we all know it. So let us awaken our people, for the heart of Europe beats inside us. Thank you.